Okay, how's everybody doing this evening? Once again, I was able to get the city to clear the streets tonight for this video, so you will see no traffic because I was able to get that accomplished. But I'm only kidding, because the streets are clear, as if you've watched any of my previous videos, as all streets are clear in the United States because of virus and social, not being able to go out socially and interact with each other. I can't remember the exact term that they use, but social, what is it? Social, it wouldn't be social networking, it would be social interaction. They have banned social interaction, so closed all the stores, everything's closed. So there'll be no traffic tonight. Maybe a police officer will drive by, perhaps somebody, but generally it's almost completely dead, as all nights, as probably most every place in the United States. But I want to keep making videos because I think it's very important to make videos at this time. And so I'm going to continue and hopefully try to make one almost every night, as I see a lot of stuff happening right now. I think we're at a really a point in time that things are going to move quickly. This is a very interesting point in time. Nothing like this has ever happened before. And if you're younger and you're asking your parents, hey, has anything like this ever happened before? They're probably telling their kids exactly what I'm telling my kids, was no. And I've been around for a while. I've never seen anything like this before. And I've never seen things happen so rapidly on such a large scale. For instance, just shutting down a whole city, or even like, who would have ever thought they could shut down Las Vegas in probably a matter of a few days by telling people they can't be in crowds, or telling people that there's a virus out there that could be spread very easily, and then we have to close all businesses. That would be almost impossible to do unless there was a war or some sort of nuclear calamity or some sort of a major event, weather event or something like hurricane or something like that, who knows. But you would never have that happen just without some sort of calamity, without some sort of a devastation, some sort of natural disaster. You would never have happen what's happened. So this is a historic time, and we should treat it that way, because it is very important to try to stay over and above what you're hearing from the everyday ordinary people that are just telling you that everything's okay, or things will be okay, or that, I think everybody is, maybe I am overstating this, I think everybody is saying things are changing big. So I don't think there'd be many people disagreeing with me. No one's saying things are going to be the same. Even the optimists are trying to say that things will be different after this pandemic is over with. So anyway, what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about two things. First thing I want to talk about, and I made a video last night called Bitcoin Rising. And I want to talk a little bit more about how I see so many things that are pointing to Bitcoin rising, Bitcoin making new highs, and Bitcoin really being an investment for the smaller investor. Today, I saw Donald Trump, and actually he seemed pretty happy. Usually Donald Trump always has something to say about somebody that he doesn't like when he's looking out over the people that are taking the news. He calls them fake news and says, I don't like you, you should need to go. And he's usually in a little bit of a difficult mood. Well, today he happened to be in a pretty good mood. In fact, he was in such a good mood, he actually said something nice about the Secretary of Agriculture, and I think his name is Perdue, and I can't even envision kind of what the guy looks like. But anyway, he said, oh, he's a nice looking guy, or we said just a handsome man or something like that. And then he introduced a new $16 billion stimulus plan for agriculture. And of course, Donald Trump was happy for two reasons. The first reason is he is heavily supported by people that are in the Midwest, and agriculture and farming's his farmers are some of his biggest supporters, and they have stuck through with him through thick and thin, and they probably will, because they're probably never going to jump to the other side. They will never vote for Joe Biden. They will never vote for anybody that's a Democrat, probably mostly. It's always going to be a Republican, generally in the farming states. And I'm from Nebraska, so I pretty well know the mindset of that area. Is they're always going to vote for somebody like Trump. So Trump's got to keep them happy. So $16 billion for the farmers. An interesting stimulus for farmers, because actually most farming, there's farmers, no doubt about it, have been very hurt by this. And I think most farmers that are producing foods for the school lunch program and for some other things. But by and large, farming hasn't been so negatively affected by this coronavirus as like the businesses that we're looking at as I'm panning around here with the video. They're done and they're locked down and nobody's coming. So waiters and waitresses, cooks, chefs, people that own the business, they're taking an immediate hit. Farmers aren't taking such an immediate hit. This is going to be down the road because, I used to farm, and the last thing we worried about on the farm is social interaction. In fact, if anything, there was a lack of social interaction. Most of the time you're out in the field in the middle of nowhere, and you were lucky if you saw, 2 or 3 people a day. That's why we used to wave at everybody we used to see, because it was so infrequent that you used to see somebody driving down a country road that usually was a neighbor or friend, and you usually waved at them and let them know that, yeah, hey, how you doing today, Joe or Bill? Because there was no social interaction, almost zero social interaction. So, of course, farming hasn't been impacted by the social interaction. And the other thing, too, is I don't think farming's been closed down. So I listen to the rural channel on XM radio, and they're talking about planting. They're talking about getting the fields ready. And, of course, this is about that time of year. It's probably pretty close to corn planting season in most areas. In fact, there's probably a lot of corn already in the ground. April. And those commodities haven't been so affected. I mean, they're down, but they've been down for a long time. And they were way down before this pandemic. But the stimulus that's being driven into farming right now is actually more money being driven in the economy. And 2 reasons for Trump to be happy today. First of all, a $16 billion bailout for farmers. And the second reason is because he owns Manhattan real estate. So a big injection in cash means his hard asset, his real estate, becomes more valuable, because the more money they pump into the system, the more money they pump into this, the more we have inflation. And inflation is his friend because he owns a lot of real estate, and that's the majority of the wealth that he owns. He owns golf courses, he owns resorts, and he owns hotels, and he owns office buildings, I guess Trump Tower. I've never been to New York. I don't know anything about New York, but I don't even know what he owns or what he is. Just his name is on. I know maybe there's a casino out here in Las Vegas with his name on it. I don't know if they just pay him to use his name or if he actually owns that real estate. But the fact that he owns real estate, anytime we're in an inflationary period of time, it's a benefit for him. So today he had a big day because he got to give farmers $16 billion to help him out with his reelection in November, and he got to help himself out with the appreciation of a hard asset, which is real estate, which he owns, and another $16 billion going into the economy. And like I say, Bitcoin rising. All this stuff is going to cause Bitcoin to rise, because Bitcoin, like real estate, is a hard asset. It's a fixed number, and you can't inflate it, and you can't change it. It is what it is. It is a hard asset. And as I stated last night, it is being used around the world every day. It's got a lot of value as far as being able to. It's been used for quite some time, like almost 11 years now. Bitcoin originally was 2008, and so 2009. I can't recall exactly, and now we're like 2020, so 10, 11 years. So Bitcoin's got a lot of use, and in those 10 or 11 years, believe me, a lot of people have tried to shut Bitcoin down, and nobody's shut it down yet. So Bitcoin has got some usability, and it's also got some history. So Bitcoin, I believe, is a hard asset, regardless of what anybody else says. And it's a way for a small investor to hedge himself against inflation, because you are going to see some massive inflation with these stimulus programs. They are going to hit everybody hard. And everybody's going to get a big check, or not a big check, but they're going to get a survival check like the farmers. I mean, they're going to get some money. I remember when the original PIC money came out, and that was because of Reagan. Reagan started contracting the economy, which is the worst thing in the world to do. That's why I always disliked Reagan as a president, because under Carter, the economy was inflating. Then Ronald Reagan coming in, he actually, Greenspan was the Fed secretary at the time. They started lowering interest rate and contracting the economy, and everything started deflating. And actually what you saw real estate prices go down. You saw a lot of farmers buying a property during the late 70s. And then during the mid 80s, the property started going down in value because of deflation. That's the worst thing that can happen in the economy, is deflation. And they're not going to let that happen again. And it's not happening right now. And they're going to inflate this thing till there's nothing left. They're going to inflate this thing, and it's not going to make the dollar go away, and the dollar's not just going to be relegated to some past time that nobody thinks about. It will stay in existence, but it just won't be worth anything. Just like a lot of different currencies in the world aren't worth anything. It just won't be worth anything. So if you want to have your money worth anything, you've got to put it in something that shields it from this massive stimulus and inflation that's about ready to take place. And hard assets, real estate, but real estate's expensive. Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, you can buy a little bit of Bitcoin. You can buy just a little bit of Bitcoin. I don't know what the minimum amount you can buy on Coinbase is, but it's very little. And I think it would be a good idea for a lot of people. My opinion only, once again. But I do think that's going to happen. And they're going to continue to inflate. Because that's what 2008 was about. It was too big to fail. They had to bail the banks out, because they had to bail the banks out because of what I talked about last night, which was the lenders of last resort. I mean, the banks were the system. You didn't have a Bitcoin together at that point in 2008. You had no Bitcoin. You had no third party to manage the transaction. The only thing you had is you had the banks. So every time you had a transaction take place, you had to go through a bank. If you bought something, you sold something, it had to go through the bank. We had no Bitcoin. We had no alternative to Bitcoin. It was only the banks. And they bailed the banks out at a great cost to the taxpayer, and everybody knew it at the time, because they had to. They had no other system in place. But and they were the lender of last resort. And on top of that, we got a guy with a boombox. How you doing, man? All right. Too bad he wasn't playing better music. Maybe I'll get copyrighted on that one. I don't know. Who cares? But anyway, like I was talking, they bailed out the banks because they were too big to fail. And the reason they were too big to fail is because the economy had to have the banks at the time in 2008. Too big to fail. We had to bail them out. We had to have a massive stimulus program. It all went to huge mega banks worth billions and billions and billions of dollars, and everybody was mad. Well, now we have a stimulus program that's going to go to farmers, small business owners, to people to get a stimulus check. So we're getting another bailout for the individuals. Although it's not going to be in the same proportion. The amount of money that the banks got relative to what they were losing probably was much greater than what an individual gets that gets $1,200-$1,500. I mean, $1,200 is not going to do much for most people. But they were too big to fail, so they massively inflated the currency in order to bail them out. They're doing it again. This is the course of action that the Federal Reserve is taking. They're not going to go deflationary. If they weren't, they wouldn't have bailed out the banks. And we're not in they ought to quit teaching economic courses, because we're not in, anybody that's trying to predict something based on economics right now, true economics, which is a supply and demand. We're supposed to be in a capitalist system of supply and demand, and let the market figure it out, is crazy. I mean, we are in, and a lot of people call it a crony crap capitalism system. I wouldn't even call it crony capitalism. I would call it something more like completely manipulated capitalism. And I wouldn't even use the word capitalism, because I don't even think we're in a capitalist system anymore. I mean, they give Bernie Sanders a hard time because they say he's a communist or a socialist. And I think he said that once or twice, which is what basically ruined him. But I mean, what we're doing right now with this stimulus and this massive inflation and the managed economy and the printing of money and the billions and trillions being given away is very much a manipulated system. It's being manipulated, and we're being shown how we have to do it, because if we don't do it, businesses aren't going to be able to reopen. So it's kind of like, once you set up a situation where somebody has to do something, you set up a problem that has to be solved, and then you give the solution. You have to go for that solution, and that's basically what's going on now. But it's going to affect everybody's lives, it's going to affect everybody's businesses, and it's going to affect everybody's wallets. You're going to have to figure out a way to hedge yourself against this massive stimulus program that's going on, because it's going to dilute the money incredibly. And a guy like Donald Trump is going to come out of this thing smelling like the winner, because he's got a lot of real estate that's going to hedge him against this inflation. So he likes this, and so does a lot of other people. A lot of people that own hard assets, they love this. This is not saying they love the pandemic and they love the virus, but they love the fact that there's a lot of money being pumped into the system right now, and they like the fact that this is going to make their whatever not really worth more, because in the real world everything's worth what it's worth, but it's going to make him look a lot better as far as the currency is concerned. So you're going to see trillionaires here real quick. So right now, it used to be, when I grew up, it was a millionaire was a big guy, and that was a rich person, rich man or woman. And then, of course, most of my life has been the billionaires. It's been the Bill Gates. It's been the Warren Buffetts. It's been, now we're going to see the trillionaires. They're going to be coming here very soon. You know, you got a couple $1 trillion companies, but now you're going to start seeing the actual individuals that are going to be worth $1 trillion coming up. So I don't know, but this is going to cause a lot of inflation. It's going to cause a lot of depreciation of a lot of depreciation. It's going to cause a lot of people to become. It's going to be harder and harder for them to live in the real world. And I think somebody made a comment on one of my videos yesterday about buying a gallon of milk. You know, if you bought Bitcoin and it goes up a little bit, does it go up far enough to pay for the increase in what the milk is going to cost? You know, through all all the stimulus that's being pumped in the system. I don't know. I mean, that is a model that's probably should be tried to be. Someone should try to figure out, but nobody's going to do that. They're just going to throw money at everything, and they're just going to keep throwing money, throw money. But like I say, because of the 2008 bailout of the banks, too big to fail. But in this day and age, we don't. It's an interesting thought that Bitcoin come about just about that time. That the solution for the problem of the 2008 bank failure, too big to fail, was a digital currency, and that it was born right at the heels of that period in time. So, and now after 10 years, 11 years of being used and being tried and being tested, now it seems like we have another period in time where we need to have another alternative solution outside of our currency. And I think that's what Bitcoin is. So I think Bitcoin's can continue to rise, and I think Donald Trump had a good day. So I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much.